Hello, folks. I'm Creatorius Rex, and we are back with another This Week in NFT News. And as always, I'm here with my co-host, Scott Leach. Hey, Scott.
Hello.
We've got a lot of news once again. I think this is our 27th or 28th episode. I'll have to look back at it, but we've been doing this really consistently every week. And so this has been fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to start out with a quick look back on some numbers because market data, it's a fan favorite. People want to have a sense of what's going on out there in the market, what it means, how the macro trends might impact what they're doing on a collection by collection basis. But basically really focused on three different main topics today: market data, brands, and NFT lands. We got a whole stack of things in there this week. There's a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. I guess they took the second half of 2021 to devise their NFT strategy to bring out in the first quarter. Get the year started off with some favorable or unfavorable press coverage, as the case may be. And then we have a couple marketplace stories. So before we get started, you have anything you want to weigh in on?
No, I'm excited. I know we talked a little bit about some of the data. I think it's just interesting to see how all this is evolving and growing, and I'm curious to see what other folks think of some of those numbers too.
Perfect. Okay. Without further ado, boom. Okay, what is this chart? We see this chart pretty frequently. Every 3 or 4 episodes, we'll probably bring a chart that looks like this. Richard Chen does a great job, hooks us up to Dune Analytics. We love looking at that. Easy place for us to get the data. So what are we looking at here? This is the total US dollar value of the Ethereum traded on OpenSea. And OpenSea, as we've looked at, we actually broke this down a couple of weeks ago. It's probably around 60 to 70% of all NFT trades even today. It might have been as high as 80+% last summer. But a lot of other options have emerged since then, and people are trying them out with great fanfare. Actually, I think it'll come down a little bit more maybe when Coinbase steps in, but I don't think Coinbase Wallet's actually going to have that big of an impact, but we'll see. All right, so what are we looking at? That really big bar, that's January. Okay, so that was the full month of January, is about 4.9 billion in trading. So we're just going to say 4.9 billion. That's something like 60% of all NFTs traded during the month. Okay, so we have over to the left, we have our previous high, which was in August. Let's see. And then you have this little short bar to the right. Well, what is that? That is February for 15 days. So 15 days into the month, so we call that half a month. That's how much it's done. So what is this? What does this tell us? Well, first of all, if you were just do a straight line through the end of the month, it looks like it would not quite be as much as January. So that's pretty clear that we've been trending on a daily basis lower than January for February. But it also looks like we were going to blow away the previous all-time high, which was August once again. We have some estimates and a couple slides in terms of what we think that'll shake out to be. But again, we're seeing another strong month. It's backed off a little bit. Oh, and everyone keep in mind, if February numbers are off a little bit from August and January, keep in mind it's going to be 3 fewer days, right? So that's one of the things you have to think about whenever you do February. It's a bit of an anomaly. But a day, when you're doing maybe 100 million in trades a day, that actually makes a big difference. So any comments on the trend line so far for total dollar trading for this month?
Yeah, this feels right. This isn't surprising to me. It's encouraging that it's staying at least somewhat close to what was happening in January, and the fact that it's blowing out August again is that's great.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, I think. Well, we've got some other data here too, in terms of total NFTs sold. So there's also an interesting idea, not just dollar volume. It's, again, if you look at the bar all the way to the right, it's less than half of January, but of course it's a half a month. So we're a little bit behind in terms of the unit volume. If we go back to the previous all-time high before January, that was actually September. We had a little bit more NFTs sold. They were sold just at a lower average price in September, but September and October, you can see that February, halfway through the month, looks like it's well over halfway ahead of August and September. So we're looking at not just total dollar value, but total NFTs traded on OpenSea in February, likely to be the second all-time high right after January.
Yeah. Whenever I see these charts, I always try and speculate and wonder what's going on here. This seems to match up with the previous chart. I do wonder about, my personal observations of the more I collect, the more I seem to sort of cast a not quite so wide a net and focus more on collections I'm already in, or collections I've been tracking for a while versus just buying a little bit of everything early on. I wonder if that's happening across the board, or if this is just kind of the average number of NFTs someone buys per wallet is staying relatively close. Anyway,
We'll talk.
interesting.
I have some data on that, NFTs per wallet.
Yes.
So we can look at that in just a minute. I think, it's an interesting comment that you made because NFTs following power law distribution. So it is very natural for us to really focus on the few things that we like or that we think, have strong merit. Although if you're in this as an investor and you're really just thinking about total return, might not be the best option. And so that's probably a discussion for another day, just like power law distributions as opposed to normal distributions, people who like statistics. In this space, if your focus is just returns, you might take a different strategy versus if you're in it for sort of long-term value-based utility and all these other types of things. Okay, so here's something that's a little bit different. So the first two kind of matched up, number of NFTs, number of dollar value in Ethereum. So then we have this one, which is active traders, this is wallets. And I know you'll have a comment about what this means, but we already have more wallets that have been active on OpenSea this month than and it's half a month through, than in all of August and September. Some of those points, October, September, November, December, like all those months, there were fewer. And we still haven't hit the January numbers. Now, when we think about wallets active, you don't necessarily look at halfway through the month, we're going to double it, because it's really just once a wallet's active, it gets counted for that month. So it's more of this binary thing. But, we're about 2/3, almost a little bit ahead of that in terms of the total active traders in OpenSea this month compared to last month. So that seems to be trending in the right direction. People who have gotten involved are continuing to be involved.
Yeah. That all feels right. I'm guessing this will be close to, based on some other data you showed me before this, I'm guessing that will get a little higher towards the end of the month. Your point that those people have already interacted, so they're already measured, but I expect that we might see this go up a little bit more.
Yeah. So a lot of the purchases that
that
are made in the second half of this month will be made by people who have already made a purchase or transaction in the first half of the month. So those won't add to that bar. But I'm sure there's some people who haven't bought in the last 2 weeks that will see something that tickles their fancy in the next couple of weeks, and they'll ape in, as we say. All right. So let's just talk about break it down a little bit. And so instead of showing like all the months, we actually just wanted to look at the peaks. So August, January, and February, and look at February in relation to the previous two all-time highs. So, August, when we hit $3.4 billion US dollars in OpenSea, I think we all were like, wow, that's amazing. And it's probably not going to get a lot bigger anytime soon. Probably go down, right? It did go down a little bit, didn't go down as much as I thought it would. But in January, we just blew that away. I mean, it's like not even close. And February, we're not going to hit January levels. But our estimate is we'll be over 4 billion, might be as high as 4.4 billion. It might be a little bit higher, or might have been a little bit higher if we had 31 days this month, to be comparable to those other 2 months. But either way, we're looking at north of 4 billion. It's going to be the second highest NFT grossing month that we've seen. And it's going to be pretty strong for what looks like a slight pullback from January.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, some of the stories we're looking at today, I think could be contributing to this. I think we're starting to see so all the speculation, like bubble, not a bubble, art, right click and say all this stuff, right? That people are talking about. We're starting to see, I think, new utility use cases that are happening and adoption by institutions and brands that, well, we may be, I personally think we're in a bit of a bubble that
Oops.
when that does burst, I think it'll
Oh,
just be another dip and then an upward. I think we're on, this thing where it just keeps going.
okay. So Andrew's going to go and bleep that out. I think he's going to edit out your comments about bubbles and bursting. That's not appropriate. You can't talk down the market. Come on,
I don't
Scott.
think I know. I don't think it's bubbles. I don't know how to say this. I know there's lots of I think there's so many different ways that these things are being used right now that we're going to see some of the stuff just evaporate, or projects. We've seen it already, rugs and things like that. But I'm not even talking about like malicious intent. I think that some of the projects just people are taking advantage of what's happening and trying to do things. And I think some of it just isn't going to work, but some of it I think absolutely will. And some of the stuff we're seeing in terms of utility and different applications are super interesting.
Like what?
And the fact that I think that some of the franchise stuff we're going to talk about the restaurant,
That's a funny one.
there's just interesting use cases that I think are beyond just what we have seen up to now, yeah. And
Yes. Well,
the trademark that's being the New York Stock Exchange thing, the fact that we have some big institutions looking at this stuff, I think means something. But I
yeah,
do
they
think
don't.
it's crazy right now. I mean, this is insane how much money is moving around. So I think it's
Mhm.
naive to assume that this is just going to keep on going up and to the right. I think we're going to experience lots of volatility. The way anyone in this space for more than um, a few weeks has witnessed, like stuff moves all the
Yes.
time.
I think it's a
Um,
good point though that like a lot of these big institutions are coming on board, and just like a little teaser, we're going to be talking about Magnus Carlsen, the top chess player in the world, Samsung, Victoria's Secret, probably keep a few of you around, Bud Light, eToro, which is sort of in the space, but sort of interesting thing there. Magic the Gathering. I mean, like there's all of these other big names that want a piece of this. And one of the things I think is a little interesting about that is it's not without a potential cost. So we know brands will jump on the latest fad just to get a little bit more PR, and it'll just be a campaign. It's here and gone. But most of those don't really have any negative associations, where clearly there's a contingent in the world that is very anti NFT. And we hear from them on the social media platforms and a lot of the mainstream media coverage of NFTs. And so I think it is interesting that they're going forward, even though there might be some negative blowback, because I don't think that many of them understand that this thing's going to be out there forever and they might not be able to control what happens to their brand. I think some of them think
yeah.
about that, but very few of them do. I think they're just like naive about that. But I would think that they can read the tea leaves, which is the articles that follow their industry, and find that there's some people who are negative about this. And maybe that would be a little risk, but they're going ahead anyway.
Yeah. And that's super interesting, right? It makes me wonder if we're just at a point. I don't think we've seen this is my opinion now. I don't think we've seen this kind of technology, like this big of a shift since internet. And information wasn't distributed nearly as quickly as it is now. Right. So the fact that everyone is saying that and we're hearing it, I think a lot of folks are like smart enough to know, or risk tolerant enough to know that they ought to hop on this and not miss the next big thing. Um, I think that's part of it that's happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just a couple more data points. This one I thought was interesting. This is the average USD spent per OpenSea wallet. You can see that peaked in August, so that is a number that was higher. We had fewer people; they were spending more money per transaction, And no, this is average numbers. It's not median. I don't have access to the median data. That's something I'm looking for. So anybody has that, send it my way. Because I would like to know, like, is the median like $1,500 and the average is $15,000, because there's a few people that are spending 2, 3, 400 ETH per month just flipping things and doing their own version of wash trading. Not that happens in this market. That's a conversation for another day. But in any event, it looks like about 9,000 per wallet last month, maybe 11,000 this month. Sort of an estimate. We try to forecast what that might be. At least so far, it looks like that's what it's trending towards, which also might mean that the bigger traders have been more active first half of the month, and sort of maybe the smaller traders will be more active in the second half of the month. But here's the thing. Here's one more other thing that I thought was interesting. In August, we also saw people buying a lot more NFTs. So they bought an average 7.6 NFTs per wallet in August. January, that was 4.5. That's a big difference, right? And yet they spent more money. But we had a lot more people who were spending that money. So price times volume, the volume in that case is also mitigated by the number of wallets. So February so far, we're just under 3 per wallet. Our expectation is that will inch up over 4 as more activity is conducted in the second half of the month. Anything here stand out to you?
Yeah, I think at first glance, when I first saw this, the high number in August versus January seemed odd to me, but then because there wasn't as many projects available, it felt like, but that's just a
all
reaction.
PFP projects. You could buy a dozen.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was nothing giant, right? The only really big, there's certainly, Apes wasn't anywhere near 100, that's for sure. So the price projects over say 10 ETH, even 5 ETH, they're just
so this is not ETH, just to be clear. This is NFTs per wallet.
Sure. But what the jump I'm making is that if you had 10 ETH to spend in August, you would probably spend it different than 10 ETH in January, right? You might be more inclined to say, oh, I'll grab a doodle, or I'll grab a cool cat or a mutant. I don't remember if mutants were still 10 in January. I don't think so.
Yeah, we have to look at the floor just overall is much higher.
Yeah,
there's more
exactly.
blue chips to buy, right? So there's more places where you can spend 5 ETH and feel like you're getting a good deal. That just wasn't available in August and September. There were just a couple of options at those price points.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Whatever happened to loot? Conversation for another day. All right, let's talk to like the kicker. Okay, ready? Wait for it. Average cost of an NFT on OpenSea in August, January, and February is the same.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. I have no idea how this is happening.
I don't know either. I mean, this is the benefit of having large numbers, right? So if you look at some of the other marketplaces, you might not be able to get this, but OpenSea has so much volume. You certainly have people who are spending 99 ETH on a Bored Ape, and you have people spending 0.01 or 0.001 on another type of collection, and basically spending more in gas than they are in the NFT. But it again, we'd love to see the median data on this, but we have averages. I think it's really interesting. One of the things that we always wonder is how sticky are prices. So Ethereum moves up and down throughout the day in terms of US dollar. And these are all paid for in Ethereum of some sort, but this is the US dollar equivalent based on OpenSea data. So Ethereum goes up and down. You've got all these things that people are bidding on. They're listed at these different prices. Are they adjusting? Are these prices stickier or not? But overall, what happens is maybe some are paid at a little premium as Ethereum's down. Some are paid at a little bit of a discount as Ethereum is up. But people the listers and the buyers must be keeping in mind what the dollar value is. And interestingly enough, our friends at OpenSea make that very easy, because right next to the price of everything that's denominated in ETH or WETH is the US dollar equivalent at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's still crazy that this has been the same. But great. It makes me wonder, like, should I have just been buying, like, it's a broken strategy, but if you just bought a ton of NFTs, is that the way to go? Like, don't even discriminate anymore. Just mix it up and get as much as you can.
Well, that was, I mean, that was Peter Thiel's strategy at Founders Fund, you know, in some ways. I
Mhm.
mean, that's what Y Combinator is doing now. Y Combinator used to
Yeah.
have maybe a dozen, and then they got up to like 40. They have in their current class. So people don't know why Combinator is. It is a tech startup accelerator, and they bring people in for 7 weeks or excuse me, in this case, 3 months, and they go through some mentoring essentially. And then they hopefully raise money afterwards to launch their startup to the moon. When moon startups, you know, started with startups as well. And now they're doing 400. Their current class, I think, is 400 from around the world. And that's just amazing. And so part of the thing is, though, as we think about power law, is it's hard to tell, particularly things that are early, NFTs, you know, and not just like the market, but like anybody who launches an NFT, you have no idea what's going to happen with that. Um, so if you don't have a great way to understand whether it's going to be a value, bet on everything, because then you're going to get the ones that are going to be 100x, and those hopefully make up for all the other ones that turn to zero.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to segment number 2? One of our
Yeah. Let's do it.
favorites here at This Week in NFT News, brands in NFT lands. First story I'll bring up, which I thought was just sort of interesting, maybe not the biggest brand that people know, but this guy right here is pretty famous, Magnus Carlsen. Some people consider him the best chess player of all time, certainly the best chess player in the world right now. There's a great documentary on him. If you want to see him playing a dozen Harvard students blindfolded in real time and beating all of them like handily. He's pretty amazing. But one of the things that they're doing is they're going to have NFTs. They're going to have social tokens as well, so coins. They're going to have things where people can like line up with their favorite players, and they're creating basically a new affinity model for chess. And PMG is play Magnus Carlsen, so it's like he's created a way to actually elevate chess from sort of the stodgy past into something that's a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, it's neat. I think this is always cool when you have something, such a deep strategic game. And I know it had a resurgence on, even on Twitch. There's lots of people streaming. There always has been, but there's a lot of people streaming chess after the Queen's Gambit show ran on. Was that on Netflix? That seemed to drive up interest in that. And I think in a lot of ways, it's neat how just this whole space and the metaverse space in particular is sort of drawing out older stuff, like stuff that's been around for a while that we're sort of giving new life to. Not to say that chess doesn't have a robust following, but I think this is cool. It's neat. It actually feels like a good, it feels like an interesting way to use metaverse stuff. We've talked in previous shows about what the heck are people going to do in the metaverse? What exactly is it? This one actually feels neat to me.
Yeah, people have been playing chess online forever. I mean, I was playing chess online with my boss at the time because we were traveling. I was working in consulting and technology consulting, and we were always at airports. We would play online. I think it was Yahoo Chess. This was like in 1998 or 1999. I mean, it was one of the first ways to actually interact with other people, and they had chat, so you could talk to each other. You know, people would trash talk you. It's like you sign up for people you don't know. I mean, it was pretty interesting. All right, so chess is like an obvious winner in this space, and I think the fact that
and it's a sandbox, which I'm a fan of anyway. So
and it is the sandbox, and that's an important thing to add to this. It's just another example of when you have momentum, you become essentially a black hole. Oh no, you're the sun that everybody migrates to the sun. Maybe it's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
But what we've seen in other tech cycles, people haven't been through it, but they'll know it just, looking back, if they haven't been through it, is that there are benefits of these spaces which become natural monopolies. And it's increasing returns to scale. And it's very simple. Once there's more momentum there, there's more people, there's more supply, and there's more demand. It's hard to go somewhere else because you're giving up one of those elements that's important to you. And Sandbox is really just killing it.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Samsung. Samsung made some news at CES. They said, "Oh, you will now be able to look at your NFTs on Samsung televisions," which was sort of interesting. Surprised a few people, but probably shouldn't, because they have like the Frame TV, which is supposed to be supposed to show art when you're not watching television. It actually looks like a framed picture. It's a pretty nice product. But now they have this other thing. Now it's only available in Korea, but if you pre-order the Galaxy S22 or the Galaxy Tab S8, you automatically get an NFT. So it's just like that's your plus up. A couple of years ago, they were giving away the Galaxy Buds, which are really quite good wireless earbuds. Maybe this is better. Maybe it's not. It's interesting that it's on the Theta network. So Theta is a layer 1 competitor to Ethereum and those types of things. So I don't, you have to get a different wallet. Trezor does support it, but otherwise it's like native ones. So I think it's like interesting. They get the headlines. It's only in Korea. It's a secondary chain. It's not like an obscure chain. It's a top 20. That chain has a top 20 global market cap coin. So it's not that obscure, but it's not one of the ones we talk about regularly. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? There's just so many layers to what's going on. Just a publicity stunt or actually something legitimate?
I mean, I think this is going to be a thing. So everywhere. So it makes sense to me. I think we're still so much, it feels like, in that novelty phase of things, where what's novelty, and is that enough to capture the imagination up and until real utility starts to become a thing. So I like it. The phone's cool, but I still want actual artwork on other things. I'm still the token frames are finally, February 22nd is the official launch date, so that should be shipped soon. I'm going to bring it on this show when it arrives here. I actually ordered another one of those. I think we're going to start seeing all sorts of applications for this. Like, I wonder how long before you'll walk by parked Teslas and there'll be a Bored Ape on the giant display screen in there, just flexing their
I think it was BMW that just demonstrated a car that can change color.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. There's some, basically, I think they must do it like ionize it or something like that, but you can like flip a switch and it goes from blue to white. Why not be able to display your Bored Ape on the hood? That would be pretty cool. Of course, the anti-NFT people might then come and key it, so be careful.
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see a lot more ways to display these things. That just makes sense.
All right, so I guess the other thing about that is Theta has said, and I guess it's a part of the Samsung release, that you're going to have like some loyalty benefits from this. I just think it's weird. I don't know. Like Theta, maybe it'll be very popular, and it's just, I wonder, like, is this just something that has a risk of going away or just being obscure and not something the brand can support over the long term because they don't have enough users on the chain?
Yeah, this is something that I think is going to be. I worry about it a little bit, because it's like we're trying to educate people as to what, not just what NFTs are, but what they may become and what they could be, and the potential of that, and trying to sort of take away some of the stigma that and beliefs people might have about them. It's already confusing enough. When we start adding lots of chains, it can get really really confusing. And if it gets spread so broad that you can't, it just feels like it's potential to make the whole thing just push us backward. But I do think there are going to be folks like, and this based on what I've seen of the Coinbase NFT marketplace, I think there's going to be folks that are trying to find ways to make the user experience seamless across various layer ones. I think that has to be the case at some point. I mean, we know everyone falls in different spectrums of what's important to them, whether you're sort of a purist and you want to know exactly what layer you're on. But I think for a lot of cases, for most folks, I think they just want a seamless experience. They want the utility and benefits of something. They want to know they're collecting. If it's a collectible, they want to know that it truly is what it claims
well, and it's
to
funny
be.
that the wallets are going to be the browsers. So like browsers were what, created this common experience across websites. Right now, it looks like wallets are going to be the thing that creates the common experience. Like, well, some combination of wallets and internet. So the web is obviously really important infrastructure here. So that's interesting. Okay, but we have another story here. Some people will be interested in. Victoria's Secret maybe coming to a metaverse near you. Now, they didn't launch a project, but they did file for trademark protection for the use of Victoria's Secret and some of its other brand names in the metaverse for virtual goods. So they mentioned like this idea of virtual apparel and those types of things. So it seems kind of obvious that a brand like Victoria's Secret is going to try to have a space in the metaverse. You think of like the Pink brand and something like that, how popular that used to be. I don't think it's as popular now, but it's certainly you still see it. But are we going to start seeing lingerie is a apparel option in these metaverse spaces?
I mean, I guess so. I think this is the go-to for everyone that's in fashion or shoes or whatever, is to say, oh, let's do a metaverse plane. It's going to be clothing on an avatar. I still maybe. I mean, skins matter in Fortnite, and people pay a lot of money for that. So maybe this will be a thing. I'm still in this stage of the metaverse can be more than just avatars with wearing brands. So I'm really curious what it all becomes. I guess I think it's good for brands to be thinking about this stuff and getting into it. I don't necessarily know that this is going to do anything for anyone.
Okay, so I'm cringing that I'm going to start
Yeah.
seeing lingerie on like meta avatars. How bad would that be? I mean, those avatars are already kind of creepy. I think they'll get better. Like I'm not like as negative as other people are on that space. I think that'll improve. It's been a little clunky in the rollout, but it's like, can you imagine like lingerie and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's a space of expression, so everyone should be able to do what they want.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, but like, it wouldn't be great if you're like walking around Decentraland and like that's
to
what
me, it feels more.
across.
This feels more like it would be benefit from like a venue in the metaverse, that there is a Victoria's Secret club that you can only enter if you hold an NFT, and by entering that, maybe there's a live stream of upcoming stuff that I don't know if they do that on a runway. I don't know how you model lingerie. I assume there's some sort of setting like that.
Yeah, they do runway. They used to televise it. It was like really popular.
Oh, see, there you go. That seems more, I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe you go into a metaverse space and then there's like a big video and then you watch the thing. Although they've had some negative blowback the last couple of years. I think what was popular in 2008 or whenever they started this, is maybe not looked at quite the same way today. So I think they're rethinking that whole thing. But in any event, we have yet another and fashion brand setting themselves up.
I think there is something though about that thing. There is something neat about the metaverse and about NFTs that I think allow for this kind of exclusivity or clubs of people that are like-minded. I think a brand might be able to get away with, normally a brand is trying to have some level of identity, right? And they're still also wrestling with how do we reach the broadest number of people and make the most money. So
yes,
there's a tension between those things. I think it's possible that NFTs in the metaverse could allow for these kind of, maybe some folks want that, regardless of what it says about, implications about body image or whatever else. People that are into it can go be into it on their own in a
Absolutely.
place in the metaverse and don't. So I think there's an advantage here for brands to actually kind of segment their audience into different circles of how hardcore they are into whatever aspect of the brand.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I
Anyway.
think is important here is, brands like Victoria's Secret, fashion brands, they're both the shapers of culture and they're a reflection of culture. And as culture becomes very important with NFTs, and NFTs are in many ways, as Gary Vee talks about, it's like an opportunity to own a piece of culture, to be part of the shaping of culture. Really, probably important for a brand like this to be there. It just has different implications than shoes. That's all we have to say.
Yep.
Maybe Jimmy Choo will have NFTs coming out pretty soon. I would think that's got to happen. Okay, so we also have Bud Light. So we went from lingerie to beer. Seemed pretty obvious transition to me. Maybe it should go the other way. I don't know. So Bud Light next. They did a drop. It was like a week ago now. It's been a few days. They had a special thing where you could get the Downs inspired physical glasses. The thing I was really interested in, there's a couple of things. So first of all, there were like almost 12,000 tokens. So not small. Like when Budweiser came out and did their thing, there were like 1,500 cans that they did with their first. So Bud Light does like 12,000. Okay. Sale price was 400. You could pay in fiat, or there was some way you could use ETH, but I can't remember how they did it. I think it was on their website. So it must have just had a way for you to connect your wallet. The floor is 0.03, which is below, it's about half of $3.99. So they've gone down in value. So maybe not a great look. We've seen, like the Pepsi ones went up and down. The Adidas ones have stood up a little bit better. I actually did sell my last Into the Metaverse one. But the other thing I want to bring out is they're going to do something around voting rights. It's almost like they're trying to say it's a DAO, but it is absolutely not a DAO. They're just going to do a snapshot, allow people to vote on like what the merch drops are and some other types of things. But they're going to do like esports gaming access. There's a few other things. So like, I wasn't impressed with the artwork that they put together. The pricing seemed a little off to me, but maybe that's a way maybe it's just price discrimination so that you don't have trolls, spending too little, right? So maybe it's a way just to exact the money from all the degens who are just trying to like use 100 wallets to buy one of each. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Bud Light and this way into the Budverse?
I'm reflecting on what I just said about Victoria's Secrets and thinking it sounded like maybe I was defending what they were doing. I'm still skeptical about all these brands getting into this stuff.
It does sound like just the opposite of what you said.
Yeah, I think it's, on the one hand, I think it's good because I understand why they're doing it. I think even though it's kind of, I don't know, light in some way, no pun intended. I don't know. I want it all to be more. I guess they're trying stuff. I think it would. I'd like to see more thought put into some of the. I'd like to see some brands do some really interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
It just seems like, and here's some bullet points. It's like a little list of things that may or may not happen. That's why you should have this.
Yeah, like how about like, hey, if I own one of these NFTs, let me send you my ETH address or my avatar that I like and print it on some of these cans. Like actually let someone get a can that says like, oh, this can's sponsored by Scott.eth. Like
that would be amazing.
That's a humble brag. I would love to bring a case of beer to my buddy's house and be like, oh, look at this.
Or a
yeah, it seems like they could just do something fun and kind of like make it fun at least. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I really thought that the initial Budweiser rollout was somewhat thoughtful because it basically took the collectibles angle with the different beer cans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I could see that. I mean, that's an iconic brand. People do collect beer cans in real life. So that seemed like okay, and then they said, oh, well, we're probably these are gonna be tokens access to the Budverse, their own metaverse, whatever that becomes. I think this is maybe doesn't strike me as thoughtful or as cohesive, but maybe it'll get there. Maybe it's just they put this out.
Yeah, I mean, we know that. Look, we know that you said it earlier. We know that NFTs are forever, and that some brands might not be putting a lot of thought into what it means, but also they might just be saying, "Look, we know it's happening now. We want to get it into the world. We have lots of ideas around utility, but we don't want to commit to anything yet. We're going to get it out there, and then we're going to see." But there's some point, like all of these kind of approaches, it makes me wonder just like how many of the NFTs in my bag are actually going to deliver on.
Well, the one that didn't deliver, I think, do you have a Pepsi mic drop?
No.
Okay. I mean, we've talked about them in the past. They had sort of an odd launch. I won't say it was a bungled launch, but they had some problems with it. But they just did a Super Bowl halftime show. How come there was not a tie-in?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
It's astounding to me. I assumed that they were going to do something with I was like, okay, I was like, it's sort of a tenuous connection between Pepsi and music. I know they've had Michael Jackson on their commercials and they do that. But I was like, okay, well, the real thing that people know about music and Pepsi is the Super Bowl halftime show, which they've sponsored for like a dozen years. And they put those things out 2 months ago, and like maybe something did happen. I didn't hear about it. So in any event.
Yeah. It just feels like there's lots of opportunity here. And I would just like to see them do more.
Okay. So just in case people missed it, this is eToro. I mean, they're in the crypto space. I don't know if there's really a brand in NFT land, but I thought it was very interesting that people were speculating Bored Ape Yacht Club. It's going to be integrated somehow into the Super Bowl. That was the rumor. And people were like, it was funny when the Yuga Labs guys, tweeted about this. They're like, yeah, you guys thought we were going to be part of the halftime show, like basically morons. It's not, that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, eToro threw a Bored Ape and it's commercial. So it was almost impossible to find. Someone indicated on Twitter, this was the most brilliant marketing ever because all of the Bored Ape holders watched this commercial 100 times to figure out where it was. And so they got a lot of extra views.
Yeah. I sort of wonder, like I have a theory on why we didn't see more. I wonder if there's lots of people just freaked out about regulatory stuff. And if they post anything NFT related, if they're going to get slammed in some way.
Yeah. Whereas eToro,
the Fallon Paris Hilton thing that happened, right? That where they talked about it on his show and they got a bunch of flack for it. I think this where it's subtle is one thing, but if someone had come out and just said, "Hey, buy my NFTs,"
we didn't talk about Coinbase. Did you see Coinbase's ad?
Yeah.
They got I think it was either 20 or 26 million visits to the website and for app download. I think it was combined between those, and in like a couple minutes after that showed up.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of people in the where I was take their phones out and grab that QR code. But if that so speculating for a second, say that was a drop, like someone was doing a drop right at that moment, 14 million for that time slot, basically no budget for the graphic itself. That was an easy thing to make. It seems like you could scoop that up really quick. Like I'm kind of shocked that no one did that, but I assume that stuff that again, there's I don't know.
Well, maybe they're not ready. I mean, I think here's the interesting thing. Like, it's hard to get users. Like, if you have a lot of users, that's valuable. And you have, like, even if you're not like somebody who makes their money on other things, um, if you had 10 million people holding one of your NFTs and then they started trading them, you'd have actually secondary market income, like, immediately, even if you gave them all away. For
Yes.
someone like Coinbase or any other brand, if they immediately want to have like a really big audience, I mean, we're talking about 10,000 and 1,000 collections, 50 collections these days. If who's the first one that's going to come out with 10 million? Now, over a million, CryptoKitties already is there, but who's going to come out with that? And that's got to be a valuable space to be in, to have those things, even if they're trading at pennies, because the whole idea is they were free. If they trade for anything, it's more than free. But then you've got this leverage point where people can come and be verified, and then you can do all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So that's a good arbitrage.
I'm actually kind of
you and I
surprised
should get
that,
an ad next year.
Yeah, I'm surprised Vaynerchuk didn't do anything, because he has done Super Bowl ads for other companies. VaynerMedia's done. Yeah. But if you thought, I mean, even if you say you gave away 10,000 NFTs, you just give them away. First 10,000 people to claim these and pay gas, get them, and then the secondary market would go bananas.
And then you have them all go to a website, connect their wallet, and register, and then all of a sudden you can do a lot of things. Now, granted, it was like almost anybody could have done that this year. And next year would probably be more discerning. You probably need like some brand associated with it. It'd be a little harder, but missed opportunity, let's say, for some folks, but maybe a really big one for Coinbase, because they had a ton of new account signups. And I'm hoping, I think they're giving away 1 million. It was, by the way, the UX on that was excellent. You just did it. It automatically brought up my Coinbase mobile app, and then just like popped up a little screen, said, accept this, and you're automatically enrolled. It's potential to win so I'm expecting the check anytime. Okay, so we've got a couple more things here. This is a brand not in NFT land, but a brand that would be in NFT land if they didn't stop someone who's trying to do it through a cease and desist letter. So if people aren't familiar with this, I believe I grabbed the right thing. This should be Magic the Gathering. Yes, it is. This is I think this is the online version, but people know this mostly from the physical cards, which are absolutely collectibles in the real world. There was it's a meeting DAO, mtgDAO, rolled out a white paper in December saying Magic the Gathering and NFTs is like the perfect combination. We're going to create a DAO and we're going to put these things together. And basically what they were going to do is just do 1-for-1 mints of things that already existed in the Magic pack, thinking that Wizards of the Coast, I think is the name of the company, would I just
stand by.
Or and then they even mentioned somewhere in one of their, I don't remember if it was a tweet or in their Discord, where they're like, and once this is hugely successful, we'll probably just buy Wizards of the Coast. And then Johnny Law got involved, and we got a cease and desist, and Wizards of the Coast said, well, actually, you don't have rights to any of that stuff. You can't talk about this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some of those use cases play out in the future, in terms of, well, if I own those, if this was a service where I own those cards and then I destroy them and mint a NFT, am I still within my...
Well, I think the people,
I don't know, there's
the meeting DAO people, I think, wrongly believe that people who own the cards own some right to use that card.
Sure. Yeah. So if you're reproducing it, there's a whole, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think, well, there's a ton of things about this story that are caveats to it, I guess. One, it was naive, but bold. If I was Wizards of the Coast, I assume they're already thinking about this, but if they haven't been, they should be. Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone. There's the other one that's already on chain. Gods Unchained, I think it's called.
Oh yeah,
It's a NFT.
Um,
Yeah. So there's a
Immutable.
lot of these. Yeah, there's a lot of these that already exist, but those games are very well suited to like everything NFT. So hopefully they're thinking about that. The other thing I couldn't get past with this article was that I think this is like the second or third article I've read from Vice that's just they're so down on
Oh yeah, Vice
everything
doesn't care
crypto
for
and
this.
NFT that it's like the whole point of the thing is lost. I don't know. But
Well, it's a very classic example of, Vice was the bomb thrower, the outsider who was breaking into the media world, doing things differently, but they became successful. So now they're part of the institutions, right? And any type of blockchain decentralization is a risk to the institutional power. So Vice, I think,
yeah,
very logically has evolved. I don't think they would agree with me that they have. I don't think they would I don't think they would want to be characterized this way, but they absolutely
yeah.
are more protecting the institutional status quo than they
Oh,
were.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, I'm noticing this just in different, uh the cryptocurrency subreddit is like this, just so much NFT bashing.
Well, and that's a different kind of thing, but yes.
Yeah, it's just funny. I don't know. The whole thing's funny. I guess it's advice we all can take. Like if something rubs you that wrong, you should probably step back and really look at it and try and understand why you have so much disdain, because there's probably something to it if it bothers you that much. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe it's because you have special knowledge and you therefore know this is bad, and everyone will eventually reveal it's bad. They just need to understand that you have the special knowledge.
Yes, that could be. Some of those folks could have that special knowledge, but
Most likely what happens is 2 years from now when they're using NFTs for things, they're like, oh, well, it's changed. It was bad then, but now it's good. Finally, because people like
cognitive,
me kept them on the straight and narrow and like pointed out their flaws, they finally came to a model that actually works.
Yes.
Okay, so
it always reminds me, like if you're ever in a spot where you're criticizing what kids are doing, like why do kids do this nowadays? Like you're aging out, like you're becoming.
I know.
Anyway,
and I have to say, I mean, I don't spend a lot of time on it, but TikTok is actually quite amusing. Okay, so one last thing I want to say about Magic the Gathering. I was like, this is actually a really good game for blockchain because
absolutely
it's turn-based, and the forget about, like, you can put it on layer 2 and or a different blockchain, not really have a lot of costs associated with using these things. But it also, like, if there's a little bit of a delay, it doesn't matter. There's so many games that blockchain is just going to be hard to use, like within the gameplay. But obviously these card-based games are perfect for this. So I assume they should get on this. Although I know there's a big contingent of gamers, we should talk about that another time, who despise NFTs, and Steam is there for them.
What? Yeah.
Steam is there for them. Okay.
Well, it's like what we just said. I mean, like that whole, having developed games and played games and worked, like there's so much PC users that have disdain for console users and mobile users. They're mobile games aren't even games to some, like there's so much that thing when something is kind of close to another thing, how much hatred there is between the different groups.
We're all tribal.
Anyway,
it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I don't know how many people are going to know what this is. This is a franchise, Chickn'Cone. I mean, like, it's brilliant. If you're in Florida, maybe you've had these. It's a franchise that has great aspirations, and they like, I like waffles. I like chicken. Chicken and waffles is sort of a big thing. You'll see it a lot of the gastropubs now. Let's do a waffle cone with chicken tenders, and people, it's like a grab and go meal. Isn't this amazing? So Chickn'Cone is looking to expand, and they're potentially getting some growth capital by selling NFTs for, it's around 14 grand a piece. And if you do that, you have rights to share in the proceeds for sales of franchises in the region you buy that one for. So it could be like a zip code, for example, or a county, I think is a lot of the ways they're segmenting it. And so I think they sell for like $28,000. So if you're the only one who held an NFT for that, you would get, half your money back, but that's not exactly how it's working because they're selling more than one per region. But then you also get a future flow of the proceeds, or you get some of the profits can go back to you if you continue to hold those. So what are your thoughts on this?
In terms, I won't comment on the specific like details of it that you just went over, except that whether the amounts are right and whether it's, but I love this idea that it's back to the utility thing. Like here, we're actually starting to see real interesting stuff around how individuals can start to take part in some of these types of businesses, whereas that would have been really hard to do up to now. Like setting up a franchise of any part requires lots of steps, right? I think it's cool. I think it's neat that you can start to do this. There was another one like this also in Florida, coincidentally. It was at first I thought it was another metaverse play, but it was actually it was basically like a timeshare for like a fancy condo or something like that. I think some of these things are really, really interesting. And we know that, an NFT in a way is really just a contract. So yeah, this stuff makes sense to me. And I think the more of this we start to see that has practical applications, I think it's good. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of like,
I can't believe this isn't going to be viewed as a security.
So that's this is the spot where everything gets hairy, right? Yeah. Like at what point does this,
But it's really interesting. The guy talks about this idea of growth capital. He needed growth capital to help expand, to market his franchise and get more people out there. This was potentially a quick way to do it, although I don't think they've actually sold very many of them. And he also said it's like non-dilutive, like he doesn't lose equity based on it. However, he is giving up future cash flows, which will undermine the value of his equity. So that people who are going to do this, you might want to consider that as well. Because people who want to invest in what you're doing might be concerned about your cash flows being impaired going forward because you have to share them with folks. All right. So marketplaces. We're going to bring this home pretty quickly here, coming up on the hour. New York Stock Exchange filed a trademark protection with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office about basically saying any use of New York Stock Exchange or New York Stock Exchange logo could be used for things like metaverse, NFT marketplaces, those types of things. So again, we have a big brand not actually doing things yet, but maybe that's their aspiration to create an NFT marketplace. It's like, if you think that everything's going to be NFTs, and in the future that might include stocks, certainly they need to protect their trademark for that space, although I think they probably were already protected, but okay, that's a nice step. But if we just talked about Chickn'Cone, and that's why these are back to back, it might be a new way that companies go to market and financing, which is not the public stock market. And maybe NYSE would be a great place to do that. And they could sell it to these entrepreneurs saying, oh yeah, if you do it here, you'll have a relationship with us. People will know you. You'll be more legitimate. And then when you want to go IPO and hit the public markets, you just like click a button and you're over on our other part of New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah. What I was saying earlier about all this stuff and the future of it and how if it's just going to keep going up and to the right, I think the fact that, this is a big deal, right? Like the New York Stock, the fact that all this stuff is growing as fast as it is, and there's large institutions talking about it is huge. in terms of how it actually all plays out in the end, we'll see. But yeah, I think this is a big deal. It's another, just more evidence that something is happening here, and we're still
Yeah.
early, super early.
Well, we've got culture, we've got finance, we've got entertainment, right? Those are three things that undeniably are part of the NFT scope. And everybody who's in the institutional or the big institutions associated with those three categories that are the winners of those spaces today, the leaders in those spaces, just makes sense. They're going to be the first ones in there. Electric utilities might be a laggard in this space. Chemical producers, oil and gas. We might not see those folks anytime soon, but these other places seem logical to me. And another place that seems logical is like, why the heck not? GameStop. We didn't talk about this. This is like 10 days ago. They announced this. They're going to have an NFT marketplace, and it is going to be on Immutable X. So because it's on Immutable X, they say that gamers will accept these NFTs.
I think it's awesome they're getting into it. I think it's super smart. And I think in light of like catching the wave of all the stuff that went on with the stock being relevant, I think that's all smart. In terms of that last statement, I don't. Even though GameStop has gotten a lot of love from the subreddit, the Reddit degenerates,
who might have an overlap with the NFT degenerates.
Yes, absolutely. I mean that in a complimentary way, not in a
of course, degens are welcome
disparaging way. Yeah. I think that there was this thing of sort of building up this nostalgia for GameStop and what it was like when they were kids to shop at GameStop. Like I remember, and it fucking sucked. Like GameStop was a miserable company that it just trying to gouge you and get you to pre-buy stuff. And then their buybacks program was terrible. I don't think they were just an option. They weren't necessarily,
they weren't loved.
Yeah, that was my experience with GameStop. Now, other people, it may have been different, but I don't think that they necessarily are tapped into what. Who knows? That's a quote for an article, so maybe they don't believe it either. But the idea that gamers are going to adopt this because it's on Immutable X is just strange to me.
Well, Immutable X, so layer 2 on Ethereum. It's got. I think that's where Vivi's going too. I think they've got the partnership with Immutable X, which Vivi obviously probably. Some people estimate that Vivi might be more valuable than OpenSea. I have trouble believing that, but certainly very valuable. Based on the amount of dollars flowing through there and the contracts they have with big brands. So Immutable X also said they're providing like $100 million worth of their IMX coins to support this. I don't exactly know how those are going to be applied, but it's to keep people on the platform and doing things. Gamers. That's pretty significant. I mean, this could. Yeah. It's the type of thing that could make Immutable X.
Yeah. Look, if they can. If GameStop can do something compelling with this stuff, I think that's at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to me. If this is just a mechanism to like
pump the stock price,
get people locked into buying games or that, I don't think it's going to work. But someone someday soon is going to make a game that uses NFTs that is incredibly fun to play, and then you won't have to sell anyone on it anymore. Everyone is going to understand what it means.
Well, I think there are some games that play.
Yeah. It's happening now, but I think there's going to be it's going to happen in a mainstream way. Something.
Yeah. Something that everyone's just like, oh, of course. Like I want to do this. I think that makes sense. Yeah. The other thing I thought was interesting about this is, you think about the traction that Solana has, and one of the areas that definitely has traction is in the gaming community. In terms of people thinking about blockchain-based games, Solana is always one I think that people consider. It's on the short list. Some people can do Ethereum, but Ethereum has a lot of structural issues with that, and it seems like Immutable, and it's possible Immutable and Solana might be the things that actually help this whole process along, because everybody needs a choice. Like markets do better when you have choices. And so if they can say, oh, well, I can go to Immutable X, I can go to Solana, that's a little bit better than like, where do I go? And I don't like this, I don't like that, or I can only go to this one place. So, maybe that's what we're starting to see. Not to say that Polygon doesn't have some plays in this space and some others, but clearly we're seeing a little bit of momentum there in Immutable and Solana, and maybe that helps NFT gaming overall.
Yeah. I think that's fair, and I agree with that.
Okay, cool. We are at the time. We ran a little long today, once again. So it's because I put too many things on the list usually. At Scott Leach on Twitter. Do you want to send people anywhere else? You want to like download Able Black? What do you want to do? Because you're doing an update.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, download Able Black. If you're watching Able Black, you can search Able Black on iOS or on Android. It is free in both places. It's a story-driven puzzle game. No ads, no in-app purchases. Actually, that's not true. You can in-app purchase me a tip, but there's no paywall, so you can play the entire game. I am working on extending that world out and in a big way involving NFTs here in the future. So
will there be an
check
advantage
it out. It's free to play.
If you're on there early, will there be an advantage, like maybe an airdrop to existing users?
I will reward anyone that plays Able Black and joins the Discord. You will have first access to whatever.
Definitely join the Discord. The Discord's fun too. They've got fan fiction going on in there. There's all sorts of really cool things going on with Able Black. Okay, I'm Creatorius Rex. Find me on the Twitter at Creatorius Rex. Some of you know that I'm also Brett Kinsella when I'm not doing NFT stuff. So I'm at Brett Kinsella on Twitter as well. And join the Niftorious Discord. So just go to like niftorious.com or niftorian.com if you know that project. Just click through, join the Discord, talk to us about what you're doing. We're really talking a lot about art projects right now. And we've got some other things planned, but it's a good place. There's really good folks in there. And we're trying to set up a space that is going to be there for the long haul. Not one of those ones where they come in for the pump in the first airdrop and then they all abandon. It's pretty content rich when we get in there. So everyone come by. Oh, and if you're running an NFT project, by the way, we do NFT office hours. There's a few of us who have been involved in NFT projects, and we just answer questions for people who are running projects if they have. So 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday nights. Drop in the Discord on the stage, and we just answer any questions that come up. Okay, folks, this has been fun. Till next week, happy hunting.